Hey, welcome back to Variety Homestead. So today we're going to do another method of curing bacon. So if you watched our making bacon the old-fashioned way, we used a tub, also known as a lug, a meat lug, with a grate in the bottom of it, a plastic grate, and we salted and sugared the bacon, put it in the fridge for 5 days, and then pulled it back out. Well, we've done the same thing here with the salt and the sugar, but what we did was a different method of curing. One of our subscribers said, "Hey, I don't have these lugs, so can I use Ziploc bags?" The answer is, of course, yes. I have actually seen that on another YouTube, at least one other YouTube video myself, and the method is exactly the same. You salt them and sugar them down just like you were going to do to cure them, except instead of sitting them in the lugs and in the refrigerator, you put them in these very large Ziploc bags. We got 2-gallon Ziploc bags that we put them in. So they have been curing for 5 days. The trick there, though, is because it builds that brine, you need to turn the bag over once a day for 5 days. So I'm going to zoom in on the bags and so you can see what we're doing there. Okay, here's the Ziploc bags. Now these pork bellies were plus or minus about 5 pounds each. So they fit into these 2-gallon Ziploc bags, as you can see. And you put them, you salt them, salt sugar cure is what we used, and you can check out the other making bacon video for the exact recipe. But as I remember, it was 1 3/4 cups each, 50-50 mix of, in our case, we use Redmond's real salt, but you can use table salt. Make sure it's not iodized salt, and light brown sugar, 50-50 mix. You put them in the bag, or you salt and sugar them down, then you slide them in the bag, and you put them, and I've got these just on a metal tray, and they went in the fridge out in the shop just like this. Every day, my wife or myself would go out and we would turn it over just like that. That's the way you get your brine all in there. And every day for 5 days, turn it over. And today is the beginning of day 6. So we are now in the morning, and we are now going to pull these out, and we are going to wash them off and let them dry, and then we're going to put them in the cold smoker. Okay, so now you can see these are all rinsed off, and they're ready to go in the smoker. We patted them dry. You would think you would want it wet when it goes in the smoker, but the smoke won't adhere to it. So turn it over. There's the fat side, okay? And then this is the lean side. And when you look around, you say, what's the best slice of bacon? And right there is going to be your slice of bacon. So it could be this way too. I mean, it could be either way. But I look for what looks like a typical slice of bacon. And that's what that looks like. So that's what we're going to do. This one, it's got a little bit of a flap on it. So it's got some more lean to it than the other, than this piece. But it's not going to affect the tasting. And there's your fat side right there. And the slice on this one is going to be right here. So there's going to be where we're going to slice. So when we put it in the slicer or we cut it with a knife, we're going to be slicing bacon off just like this. So these are ready to go. I probably will not show the entire smoking process, but I am going to weave in and out throughout the day. It's going to take all day to smoke these. And then I will show you the finished product. We might not do a taste test on this one, but we might. And the reason we might is because the first batch it was all salted down. And so the juice, the moisture that came out of the pork belly went down into the bottom. And it just allowed the salt, sugar cure to seep in and dry that out. And that's what you want to do when you're curing anything is dry it out. You want to reduce moisture. You want to eliminate most moisture. In these cases, we put them in 2-gallon Ziploc bags, and the flipping makes sure that the brine gets on each side and soaks in really well. But you are probably, and we'll find out, you're probably creating a stronger cure, i.e. maybe a more intense cure by leaving it in the brine. I don't know. We're going to find out when we taste it. The last batch was awesome, and so stick with us, and we'll be back later. Okay, I got the smoker fired up, the coal smoker, and I'm starting off with some oak. And I did just put the bacon in there, or well, it's not bacon yet, it's bellies, cured bellies, and they will be bacon when it comes out. So you can see there's a decent fire going there. I'm going to be actually using more hickory and pecan today, and let's see if I can show you. So there's some hickory, there's some oak, and there's pecan, and I'll be using that. Now the smoker's a little, or actually it's a little warm today. The smoker is running around 78 degrees right now, which is a little warm, and it's very breezy. So I anticipate I totally anticipate it to smoke a little hot today, but that'll be okay, because we will. We're gonna once we vacuum seal it, we're going to freeze it. We've still got some of the last batch left, so right now I'm gonna throw a little chunk of hickory on there. I'll throw another piece of pecan on there too, back, just to get it going. Some more. All right. So we are smoking. We do have the bacon or the bellies in there, and we're going to smoke them for the rest of the day, probably about 8-9 hours, and then we'll check back. Okay, here's some of that bacon that we just sliced, and we are now going to do a taste test, so we'll be back in just a minute. Okay, before we taste it, we just cooked a couple pieces. Before we taste it, I want to give you just a brief overview of what we came up with out of these 2 bellies that became bacon. So I trimmed them up so that they were pretty darn square. And what I got out of that was a little bit over around 1.5 pounds of trimmings. Now, none of this is going to go bad. We're going to take this and use this for greens and side meat, and to put in greens and beans and things like that. That's going to be really good. We also got 7 pounds of almost full sliced bacon. I trimmed it up so that it would fit in the slicer. And I've sliced it with a knife before too, so it works. It just comes out a little thicker unless you're really handy with a knife. So we got 7 pounds here. So 7 pounds, 1.5 pounds is about 8.5 pounds. So we had a little bit shorter than 1.5 pounds of loss from the smoking and the curing process. All right, the moment of truth. Here is the bacon. I'm going to take a piece of this and I'm going to eat it. I like mine a little crispy, chewy, in between crispy and chewy. Man, that is really flavorful. And let me tell you something. We used that Ziploc bag instead of the meat lugs this time, and it did. Being in the cure for 5 days, wherever we flipped it once a day, did not affect the saltiness. It's not salty. It's in there a little bit, but nothing bad. I smoked it for just under 9 hours, right at 9 hours. Pecan, hickory, started it off with oak, and it worked out excellent. So if you want to try this, this will absolutely work well. We're going to take ours after we slice it. We're going to put it in the freezer. But what you can do, if you're off grid, or if you're in a situation that you don't have the freezer space, what you can do is you can, once you cure it, you treat it like a country ham. So once you cure it, you can smoke it and then hang it, and then you can go out. But be advised, I have read and watched where the flavor was more intense. Wasn't bad, it was just more intense, and the bacon gets a lot stiffer as it continues to just stiffen up through that hanging process. A few years back, Debbie and I went to the mountains for a few days to do some antique shopping. This is back in 2015. And we stayed at a little bed and breakfast kind of place, and we went to a country store, and they had a bin full of slabs of cured smoked bacon. And they were just laying there. They weren't even in packages. So we bought one, and we took it back to the bed and breakfast where we were staying. We had a little kitchenette in there, and we sliced it up and cooked it. It was delicious. It would be many years before we tried to do it ourselves. But I'm just saying, it wasn't on refrigeration at all, but it was cured really well. So you can do this. Just be prepared that the flavor, it'll get stiffer. The flavor will change a little bit. It won't be bad, but it's something that you can do in the event that you don't have freezer space or that sort of thing, and you're not going to eat it that fast. But bacon around here doesn't last very long. So, in conclusion, let me encourage you to watch our previous video. We show more of the smoking and then and the slicing. And also, thank you for visiting Variety Homestead. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We'd love to have you as part of the family. And until the next time, I hope you have a good one.